Hey everyone, it's Jack from cultaholic.com, and well, that was the Raw edition of the Superstar Shakeup, and might I say, what an experience. He's done it. He's made that joke. He's gone there. If you didn't watch Raw, by the way, you are in for a treat when you find out what that's about. Yes, so the Raw after WrestleMania turned out to be a very eventful one, but how good was it? Well, there's only one way of finding out, and that's by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for the Raw Graded Experience. And who better to open the show with the opening segment than Stephanie McMahon? Style grace, she's never going to be demoted. Now welcome to the queendom, where the kings bow down. Stephanie starts off, as she often likes to do, with being a babyface. So she's like, welcome to Monday Night Raw. And the crowd are all like, yeah. And then she's like, I'm going to bring out my brother, the best in the world, Shane McMahon. And everyone's like, boo, you were just nice to us and now you're being a meanie. Shane comes out, bullies the announcer, mocks Montreal because we're in Montreal. He mocks like Quebec and French Canadians and that sort of thing. And then the Miz's music hits and everyone's like, whoa. And it turns out the Miz is the first superstar to be shaken up in the Superstar Shakeup. Shaken up, traded, drafted, shaken up. He's shooketh. Miz is shook. And he's on Raw now, the Miz. That's right, I'm quite tired. It's like 4 a.m. So yes, the Miz's music hits. Shane looks really worried, but the Miz is being a sneaky boy and comes out through the back of the crowd and blindsides Shane McMahon. You'd think that this would be a simple beatdown for the Miz. Not so. He is dealing with the best wrestler in the world, and I'm not joking when I say that Shane, without cheating or hitting him with a cheap shot really, assumes control of the brawl, running Miz into the ring post and hitting him with loads of tiny little punches. And if you know Shane McMahon and his wrestling style, he throws two kinds of punches. One, which is just about that far away from the target, and it looks really silly. And sometimes he'll just throw in like his second type of punch, which is just hard as he can, actually hit them right in the face. He seemed to do that to the Miz. I'm not exactly certain where this came from, but the Miz was busted open badly. Like right on the temple, kind of, it looked, or maybe up near the hairline. It was bad. There was blood pouring down his face. Made him look quite badass, to be fair, but it also made it look like Shane's really hard and has beat up the Miz, which I don't think was the desired effect at all. Shane actually manages to clothesline Miz over the crowd barrier, and there Miz is able to grab a chair because he needs a weapon to get back at the best in the world, I guess, and successfully runs Shane off with the steel chair and poses on the ropes. Blood just pouring down his face, man. Look pretty gnarly. Yeah, I have so many mixed feelings about this opening segment. I'm just going to have to go straight down the middle and give it a C grade. On the positive side, Miz to Raw I think is a good move and one that I'm in favour of. On the negative side, Shane's punches and the fact that he got the better of the Miz in a fighting situation, and Miz had to use a weapon to get the better of him. Next up, a big 8-man tag team match featuring 2 babyface tag teams versus 2 heel tag teams. On the babyface side, we have Zack Ryder, Curt Hawkins, Ricochet, and Aleister Black taking on the Revival, Scott Dawson, Dash Wilder, and Ivar and Eric, the Viking Experience. We all love them. Wait a second, you might be thinking, hang on, whoa, the Viking Experience, Ivar and Eric? What the hell are you talking about, Jack? I will tell you, friends, this is the biggest talking point from this week's Monday Night Raw. Yes, that's right. The War Raiders are on Raw, but they're not the War Raiders anymore. They're Ivar and Eric. They've always been Ivar and Eric, our friendly local Vikings, the Viking Experience, as they are collectively known. Wow. I honestly don't know how good this match was, really, because everyone in our chat on the live stream was falling all over the place at this name change. Now, I understand that you may not want a team on the main roster with the word war in the title, but I have 2 questions. First of all, what was wrong with Hanson and Rowe, their names that have been changed now? And secondly, you can think of a better name than the Viking Experience, surely. The Viking Experience. The Viking Experience. It sounds like a Viking-themed, crappy theme park. I feel really bad for the War Raiders. They're a tremendous tag team. I've been fortunate enough to meet them in person. I like them. I think they're really cool guys and great wrestlers. They do not deserve to be called the Viking Experience. On the plus side, they do pick up the win. Do Eric and Ivar. We love them. We've always loved them. They pick up the win, pinning, I think, Zack Ryder. Forgive me for not paying too close attention to this match. I was absolutely stunned. In fact, it gets a D- because, you know what, the match I think was perfectly fine, maybe even on the higher side of average, But at the same time, it gets a D- grade because, wow, you can't just be renaming tag teams the Viking Experience and not expect me to give it a bad grade. The Viking Experience. The Viking Experience. One of them is called Eric. Next up, Finn Balor comes out for non-title action, not putting his IC title on the line, but his opponent makes up for that by being very bloody exciting. That's right, it's the latest Shakeup superstar from SmackDown to Raw, Andrade, accompanied by fellow Shakeup E, Zelina Vega. But yeah, no, the match they had was pretty good. Probably my match of the night, or at least it would have been, had I not been still reeling from the Viking Experience. But at the same time, I think it was a good match. Both guys have got really good chemistry because they're both just really good in the ring, and I just think they worked really smoothly together. Vega was great as well. In fact, she played into the finish, a finish which I saw some people unhappy with, to be honest. It happened after Vega hit head scissors on Balor behind the referee's back. That allowed Andrade to assume control and pick up the victory. Non-title, remember, so he's not the new IC champion, but it is a defeat for the IC champion after only winning it back at WrestleMania 35. I'm going to give this a B+. I really did enjoy the match once I'd gotten over the Viking Experience. But at the same time, I think that I understand people's point when they say that Finn Balor should have won, but at the same time, I'm going to land on the other side of the argument and say that I'm actually happier that Andrade won, because you don't want to get his time on Raw off to a bad start, losing in his first match on the brand. Whereas I think Balor can take this loss because it came via cheating, via Vega being sneaky, so it was a tainted victory. I think it can all be forgiven, and generally was a well put together segment. Next up, we had Elias coming out to do basically an Elias promo. He ran down the Montreal crowd, and it was excellent. The Montreal crowd, I have to give a shout out to them. They were excellent all night, and not just in like the whole Canada's Bizarro land, they cheer the heels, they boo the faces away. No, by and large, with a few exceptions, they cheered the baby faces and booed the heels, and were so loud and so passionate all night. And I think without them, if this had been played out in front of a dead crowd, it would have been a much worse show because of it. But because of the crowd, they helped kind of drag the show through some difficult stretches, even when it seemed like almost like Raw didn't want to and it just wanted to kind of stall on us. The crowd really did help pull through. But this wasn't one of those bad segments. This was a good segment. Elias was being his charismatic self, and then he also said, well, he was insulting like the local sports teams, he was insulting the local culture and that sort of thing, getting monster heat from the Montreal crowd. And then he said, you know what, no one's going to interrupt me this time, after Cena and then Undertaker interrupted me. And then he was interrupted by Rey Mysterio. Mysterio came out, they had a little brawl, which Mysterio got the better of, but then Mysterio was beaten up by Lars Sullivan. I think we can now confirm, oh, by the way, Rey Mysterio's on Raw. That's another shake-up. Fair play, pretty pleased with that decision as well. I think Rey can do some good work on Raw, but the bigger point is that I think that Lars can now be confirmed as some sort of legend killer kind of gimmick, because if we look at the people he's attacked so far, Kurt Angle, both Hardy Boys, and now Rey Mysterio. That seems pretty generation versus generation kind of gimmick to me, and I'm in favour of it. I like it. This gets a B from me. It probably should have got a higher grade, but I think on the whole, Rey was a little bit sloppy at one point. I can't quite remember when, but he did kind of botch something a little bit. I think it may have been his fault, but I'm not entirely certain. But I'm not going to let that take away too much from the overall segment, because Elias's promo skills were great. I enjoyed the fact that Rey's been drafted to Raw, and I enjoyed that Lars beat him up as well. I thought that was a good move, and I'm excited to see who Lars targets next. Next up, tag team action between Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, who are heel now, remember, and the Usos. The Usos are now on Raw. It wasn't meant to be revealed as early as it was, but while Roode and Gable were stood in the ring well before the Usos had made their entrance, someone accidentally pressed a button or something, and the Usos nameplate appeared on the screen. Oh, bless them. I feel so bad for that person. I hope they're okay. But obviously the live crowd didn't see that. They were really fired up, as were the Usos, who won clean in about 5 minutes. So that's pretty good, establishing the Usos immediately as a big tag team threat on Raw. This gets a B-. It was short, but it was pretty good action from start to finish. The nameplate gaff has to penalise it a little bit, though. I can't give it a B. I have to give it a B-, but I'm going to try not to let it take away too much from the segment. At least they didn't rename the Usos like the Uso Experience or something like that. Just off the top of my head, just for example. Next up, a moment of bliss, and Alexa's guest this week is none other than Quebec's own Sami Zayn, and what a reception he got from the hometown crowd. They played his music 3 times in a row just so he could soak in all the cheers, so that when eventually he got all heelish in the promo, it was even more of a gut punch. In fact, to pop the crowd even further, Sami was speaking in French, he was starting Olé chants, a nod to his previous gimmick as El Generico, or even maybe his time in NXT. It was really, El Generico and Sami Zayn are different people, and I shouldn't have said that on camera. I'm so sorry if I've ruined everything for you, everything. But you always know that when a heel's kissing up to the crowd and being nice to them, it's always going to turn at some point and end on a sour note, and that's exactly what Sami Zayn did. But what a sour note it was. He had the crowd in the palm of his hand, whether he wanted to get cheered or booed in this segment. It was really cool to see. He basically just hit them with more of what he's been saying, like last week as well, saying, you're all hypocrites, you turn your own inner hatred outwards towards people like me, wrestlers, talented people doing what they love to do, and shame on you for doing that. And I loved it. I thought he did it really well. Alexa tried to sort of babyface it up a bit, but this segment was entirely, pretty much, all about Sami Zayn. I'm going to give this segment an A-. On just the content of the promo alone, it would probably have gotten a B or even a B+, but I think Sami himself and his performance of it pushes it to an A-. I'm really fully on board with this heel gimmick right now, even though a heel wrestler railing against the fans and everything isn't, it's not too unique, but I think Sami's managing to deliver it in a unique way, and that's really cool to see. Can't wait to see what he does next. Next up, non-title action as the Women's Tag Team Champions, the IIconics, take on Bayley and a mystery partner. They are really playing up to this whole Sasha Banks thing, which I guess is the wise thing to do, to be honest. Dip your toe in a bit of like the reality going on backstage and stuff. So before the match, we head backstage where Bayley's trying to get a hold of Sasha on the phone, but she can't. She's like, leave a message for me if you get here or whatever. She doesn't say whatever. That was me. She's not like, leave a message or whatever, mate. They're best friends. They wouldn't talk to each other like that. Then, as Bayley finishes her message to Sasha, she's interrupted by the IIconics, who taunt her because their partner's not shown up, but Bayley's like, don't worry, I have a mystery partner and you're going to find out who it is next. And that turns out to be Raw's newest superstar, Naomi, transferring across from SmackDown Live. The match is kind of a forgettable one, unfortunately, with Naomi gaining the pinfall after about 2 minutes, a result which I'm not too happy about. Now, it sounds a bit hypocritical because Andrade made his Raw debut, and I was like, good, he needed to win on his first Raw appearance. Now, Naomi's been shifted over to Raw in the shakeup, and I'm saying bad that she won on her first appearance. Let me explain why. So I'm going to give this a D+. I wasn't too hot on it at all, really, and I don't think let's break down what's happened. You've taken the women's tag team titles off Sasha and Bayley, who it seems were promised some kind of lengthy run, maybe even an excursion down to NXT to defend against Kairi Sane and Io Shirai, which would have been awesome to see and possibly a fantastic match. You've not done that. You've scrapped that. You've taken the titles off them at WrestleMania and put them on the IIconics. And look, I like the IIconics, but I really wanted that long establishing reign for Sasha and Bayley. So they're on the IIconics now, the belts, which, that's okay. And then you've kind of just had them lose their second match since winning the titles, I think. It doesn't, to a mishmash team who shouldn't have great team chemistry as well. I just don't think it was a good booking decision. I think that the IIconics should have won by either cheating to win or maybe even sneakily getting their opponents DQ'd or something like that. I'm not saying they should have beaten these baby faces clean. That's not what the IIconics are about. They're not powerhouses or they're not meant to be particularly tough. They're meant to be sneaky and manipulative and clever. And I just think that maybe they should have used that to win rather than lose clean in a matter of minutes. Next up, EC3, I think is now confirmed full-time as a Raw Superstar, and what a bad start he got off to. So EC3 hits the ring, Braun Strowman's music hits, that's his opponent, and the match I don't think even gets started. Maybe it does and gets thrown out as a no contest straight away. Basically, Braun beats EC3 all the way around the ring, and then EC3 tries to escape up the ramp, and Braun chases him, slams him into the LED screen, at the back of the stage, and then slams him off the stage as well, into the tables and the production area and that sort of thing. And EC3 looks really, really sore. What was this about then? Because I know that EC3 is a heel and that Braun Strowman's a babyface, but Braun hasn't snapped recently. He's been winning the Battle Royal and stuff, and yeah, he's snapped in the past, and it seems to have been without reason, but it's actually always been with reason. He's either trying to get revenge on somebody, or he's being a heel. Now he's a babyface, he's not trying to get revenge on EC3. I don't think they've really had any interaction at all before, and yet Braun is now kind of coming across as a bully, to be honest with you. I know it's ridiculous saying that someone as naturally heelish and smarmy as EC3 can be seen as a victim of bullying by a babyface, but I just think that Braun looked like he was picking on someone for the sake of it. I didn't really get it. This segment gets a D, and I hope that we get Braun's character motivations soon. But if he just goes back to attacking Joe on SmackDown tomorrow, then we're never going to find out what this was about, and it was just another excuse to bury poor EC3. Next up, Becky Lynch versus Ruby Riott. I believe this was non-title, but it might not have been. It doesn't really matter anyway because Becky Lynch won clean, and it featured all the things you'd expect from a Becky Lynch versus Ruby Riott match. There was like the Bexploder, there was the Riott Squad trying to get involved, and there was the Disarmer, which ended up finishing the match. I'm going to give this a C grade. Nothing really to say good or negative about it. It was just simple, straightforward action, not a very long match, and the right woman won. But the segment wasn't quite over yet. Becky is interrupted by Natalya, who comes out and says basically, I'm underappreciated and I deserve a shot. And Becky agrees with her, to be fair, and she says, you know what? I knew that when I won these titles, not only you, but all the underappreciated women that I've worked with throughout my career would be gunning for me, which I like that. Good logic. And it was nice not to see Natalya turn heel for the sake of a feud. It was nice to see, you know, both have respect for each other, but still a healthy sort of intensity and competitiveness. But they are interrupted by the Golden Girl, Lacey Evans, who comes along and cuts a promo actually this time. She's not been too talkative in recent weeks, but she gets on the mic here and runs down Natalya and Becky, and then reveals that she has a #1 contenders match for Becky's, I think, Raw Women's Championship right now against Natalya, as per Vince McMahon's orders. Unfortunately, the match isn't a very good one. I found it quite sloppy and quite drawn out, but the ending was pretty good, with Lacey Evans fighting out of a sharpshooter, looking pretty damn strong and hitting her own finisher for the win. The majority of the match I didn't enjoy watching, but the finish was decent, and I think the right person won as well. The best person for a feud with Becky Lynch right now. So I'm going to give it a D+, because on the whole I didn't enjoy it, but I think it achieved its aim sort of, in a bit of an ugly way. And finally, we had the main event, the Shield, or kind of two of the Shield, because Dean's made his last appearance and all that. So Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins and their mystery partner, who's just been shaken along from SmackDown Live to Raw, versus our heel team 6, Drew, Bobby, and Baron, with Leo at ringside. The lads. I should mention as well that there were two guys who were kind of called up in between segments that I didn't want to dwell on for too long, but just before I talk about the main event, Cedric Alexander is now on Raw from 205 Live. That's a very exciting development. And also Eric Young from Sanity is on Raw. What does this mean for Sanity over on SmackDown? I don't know. But anyway, the Shield's mystery partner is revealed to be AJ Styles, another move that I think many of us saw coming, but one that I really do agree with too. I think this could be the best one so far. AJ's been on SmackDown for what feels like forever, and it feels like he's wrestled everyone he can over there. So now, over on Raw, hopefully he gets kind of a refresh and we can see him in a new light and against some new opponents maybe. But sadly, you know how these matches go. They're not the most inspiring thing, even when they're pretty high octane and exciting. Basically, whenever the heels are on top, it's kind of grinding and slow and the crowd get a little bit tired of it. Even if the Montreal crowd were actually excellent this week, as I've mentioned. But then when the babyfaces come back, it feels a bit house showy. They're all, you know, hitting their moves in succession and everyone's like, yay, the babyfaces are going to win. And the babyfaces do win. Lashley took 3 finishes in succession. I think it was like the curb stomp, into the spear, into the phenomenal forearm, and AJ Styles picked up the pinfall for his team in his first night on Monday Night Raw. Unfortunately, I can't give this more than a C+, and while the match itself may have deserved a little bit of a higher grade, I can't for 2 key reasons. One, I'm so sick of seeing these heels just shoved together into this loose alliance under Baron Corbin, especially Drew, who really needs to break out and be a single star sometime soon, please. Maybe via winning Money in the Bank, who knows. But at the same time, my main reason for giving this a lower grade than you might expect is because we literally saw a very similar thing happen in the main event just last week, when Kofi and Seth Rollins formed a loose babyface coalition to take on the Bar, and they won clean and stood tall at the end. And it just felt like this should have kind of promised a little bit more, and it didn't. So I can't give it more than a C+. Now let's move on to the overall grade. The overall grade is a D+, which sounds really harsh, but I can't emphasize that the lows of this show were really quite low. I'm speaking, of course, mainly about the Viking experience. What are they called again? Ivar and Eric. We love them, we do. We love you, War Raiders. Viking experience, we do. We love you, Viking experience, we do. It sounds like a bouncy castle in a car park, man. But it doesn't get a lower grade. I was tempted to really hammer this Raw with a lower grade. D+ feels a little bit harsh for me as well, just because I thought that the majority of the actual shifts, the shakeups made, were ones that I agreed with, but we'll see how they play out. But no, on the whole, the low points of this show really did feel low to me. I don't know how much of that has to do, by the way, with the rumours that it had to be rewrote at the last second because of travel and transport issues. If that's the case, then I can kind of understand why this week's Raw was lower than usual. But at the same time, there's no excuse for the Viking experience. Not at all. None at all. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.